The arrival of Ivan Demidov is shaking up the fantasy landscape, but we also got to talk about these floundering Montreal Canadiens and all of the other NHL postseason angles that you need to know on the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're getting to bets, we're getting to who's winning in the postseason, and everything in between. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy hump day, everybody. Welcome back inside the lab to your daily 30-minute source for everything hockey. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Steele and Flip. Salute, shout out, much love. We see you every dayers. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where new customers to FanDuel get $250 in bonus bets right now if your first $5 wager hits. Steele, we're going to be talking about wagers every single night like we always do, but now it's playoff implications, and we have to talk about Ivan Demidov. We have to. Everyone in the NHL is buzzing about this player, and I say take a quick little pause because not everything runs through one single player, and the Montreal Canadiens are sweating it out. We'll talk about that as well. Who deserves it? CBJ, MTL. Landeskog is back. We'll mention it quickly. Darnell Nurse, the Edmonton Oilers, we'll talk about it, and the meat and potatoes, another preview. Steele and I will continue to break down every single postseason preview. We got X Factors, best bets, strengths, weaknesses, and everything you need to know about this Canes Devils series and Wednesday's bets. Mr. Roden, over to you. Lots going on, even though the season is winding down. Demidov, what'd you see? What do you think?
Well, first of all, the Montreal Canadiens have taken a book out of Rory McIlroy's a page out of his book right now because they are making us sweat and going through a roller coaster of emotions at this point in the season. They could have clinched the playoff spot, and of course, they lose in a shootout to the Chicago Blackhawks. You never want to earn your playoff spot by another team losing, and that's what could happen if the Blue Jackets lose to the Flyers. But let's get to Ivan Demidov's debut. I mean, this to me was the perfect example of a head coach's perfect dream turned into a complete nightmare. And when you look at Demidov's score sheet on his debut, 1 goal, 2 points, a +1, 3 shots on net with 1 hit, that's a really good debut for the Montreal Canadiens. That's a really good debut for Demidov. But then those negative aspects of his game start to creep in. And like I said, the start of the game, it really couldn't have been better for Montreal and Demidov. You're at home, the barn's rocking. 6 minutes into the game, and you're on the board with your first NHL point. 7.5 minutes later, you bury your first NHL goal. You're up 2-0. Yeah. What goes wrong from there? The Blackhawks start to claw back. They tie up the game. And then Demidov's defensive capabilities were put on full display for everyone to witness on that Lucas Reichel goal.
You don't say.
You got to take the good with the bad. And my God, was Demidov's effort on that back check absolutely horrible. Full display, full disclosure. That was exactly what you and I discussed on last week's episode.
Thank you very much.
We talked about Demidov's debut and the negative aspect of his game in the defensive zone. They lost that game right then and there with that lack of effort from Demidov. Obviously, you have the opportunities in a shootout to win and overtime to win. They couldn't get it done, but that was on full display of what is wrong with Demidov's game right now because he started off with a bang in the first period, and then it was downhill from there. And unfortunately, we have to wait another day to see if the Montreal Canadiens make it back to the postseason for the first time in a very long time.
And what I think, Steele, there's a fantasy takeaway already to be had here.
There is.
Because do not let all of the hype go to your brain next draft season and you see Demidov there floating around the 5th, 6th round, 7th or 8th round, 9th or 10th round even. I say you have to be very wary of this player. He's so young, Steele. No, and I know I'm getting a little bit maybe harsh, like a wet blanket perhaps, and maybe I shouldn't say 9th or 10th round because maybe even with the upside, you take a risk. All I want to say is the offensive flair, for sure. He looks great offensively, but this is the NHL. And if we're talking to the point of what it really means the most right now, and that's postseason success, I said it to you the other day. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because also the playoffs, that was the Chicago Blackhawks steal. That's not going to be the Washington Capitals in game one. I know the Washington Capitals have really struggled themselves, but let's be real here. That's a very interesting angle that we have to consider. Is he going to be a great player? It looks like that's a slam dunk. Is he going to be a very offensively gifted piece that probably gives you a ton of fantasy upside? Yes, but when? Because now you're looking at this deal, and I wanted to throw some numbers at you because the Demidov thing, it's impressive offensively. And next season, we'll talk about it a little bit more because maybe I was being overly negative, but let me hit you with this because the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I know if, we're recording early, if Tuesday night the Philadelphia Flyers botch it against the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Blue Jackets win in regulation, now the Montreal Canadiens are really sweating. However, let me throw this at you. The Montreal Canadiens have a goal differential of -22 this season.
Yeah.
The Blue Jackets have a goal differential of -3. The Columbus Blue Jackets offense is red hot. And we know the strength of this team is the potency of their top 9 forward group, and it's clicking. They are scoring goals in bunches. Earlier this month, 8 against Nashville. Then they score 5 against Ottawa, 7 against the Washington Capitals in a shutout, and then another 4. They're choosing a very opportune time to play their best offensive hockey of the year, and then you have the Habs struggling to finish it off. So do I still think the Habs should be the team? Yes. Would I lean to them as the team that I think has more potential? Yes. But let's not forget, there's a lot of similar one-sided players. Cole Caulfield, offensive stud, liability on the defensive end. Patrick Laine, same. Alex Newhook, similar. Demidov, again, that might be something that people are overlooking. However, exciting right now. Let's see what these next few games fold because I think it's going to be close.
And I think you got to give a lot of credit to the head coaches of both those teams, Dean Evison and Martin St. Louis, for getting them to this point. And yeah, I agree. I would go with the Montreal Canadiens. Who deserves it more? I would lean towards them. I think they're more ready to take on the Washington Capitals rather than the Columbus Blue Jackets from at this point in the season. Again, flip the coin at this point. Montreal Canadiens should have already secured their spot the last 2 games.
And the Blue Jackets were really bad down the stretch. So
they were the last month and a half, a really long losing streak for them as well. So really good point. Last point about Demidov. For me, going into next year's draft, in a keeper league, this guy is a first-round pick.
Different story.
Second-round pick. I think leaving him to the 8th, 9th, 10th round is a little too far for a year-to-year league. For me, Demidov, we'll talk about this a lot more in depth in the offseason when we get into August, September, leading up to next year's fantasy draft. Demidov is going to be, there's just, even with the negative parts of his game defensively, that doesn't really transfer over to the fantasy world.
You're probably
5th,
right.
6th round, maybe even higher than that.
Where'd Mitchkov go this year? Not to cut you off, because that's a similar comparison.
Mitchkov on a year-to-year, I believe he was getting taken, from my recollection, in our league somewhere around the 8th or 9th round, maybe a little bit later than that. Keeper leagues, Mitchkov went 1st or 2nd round.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Totally,
off the top, Demidov. When we come back after the break, we're going to break down the Hurricanes and Devils playoff preview, first-round series. Also, let's get back into the conversation of the Kings and Oilers. What a game that was the other day. 5-0 shutout win for the Kings. Darnell Nurse sending an early message to Quinton Byfield to keep his head up in that first round series. All of that and big time bets coming up later in the episode.
Lots more to get to the rest of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday specials. We try and hold it down for you guys on as tight of a schedule as we can to continue to get you this paper. We'll touch on the Oilers, and then I really do want to talk about this New Jersey Devils, Carolina Hurricanes series steal. I don't know if you and I are going to be on the same page, but I do know this. We'll have a whole bunch of bets to make, and today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. You ever check into that bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? It's been a bunch of times for me recently, Steele, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, maybe a few too many wobbly pops. It's easy to lose track. Where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and you start building your wealth. Get those surprising insights all in one convenience and easy collaboration by managing your money. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you have been showing us all season long. That's why we're tuning back in, getting you all ready for the NHL playoffs with these breakdowns. Before we get to the Hurricanes Devils, real quickly, Gabriel Landeskog rejoining the Colorado Avalanche after one game with the Colorado Eagles. This is big news for them, especially going into this first round series. We already broke down that Stars Avalanche first round matchup as well on our latest episode. So over to you. How do you feel about now? I remember you picked the Stars in 7. Does that change your mind with Landeskog coming back into the lineup, or are you still rocking with the Stars?
Well, oddly enough, Steele, I picked the Stars. Landeskog comes back. I picked the Oilers. Darnell Nurse is out. More guys are down with injury. All of a sudden, my predictions are shaky. I'm not backing down now. I'm still going Stars.
Love it.
Landeskog hasn't played an important hockey game in 3 years. Did he look pretty good in the AHL? Yes. Is he a gamer? Is he one of those guys that really kind of affects the game without maybe even touching the scoring sheet? For sure. I'm not super rattled about just this player coming back affecting the whole outcome of the series. Will it be important for the Colorado Avalanche? Sure. This guy is a heart and soul type piece, and I can't get on here and make an argument where this isn't a good thing for the Avs. I still say Stars in 7, and I still say Oilers in 7, even though if there was one thing I'm very shaky about and one that I would turn back on, it's the Edmonton Oilers. And I think that all that needs to be said is I don't know what Darnell Nurse is thinking there. I saw all the comments about Deneau. I saw everything. It's just a stupid play. I don't see him missing playoff games. I could see him getting one game the last regular season. I say he's in there, but realistically, that just fires me up to watch that series even more. The Kings are primed to take the series, and I think that's starting to shift on FanDuel in terms of their odds. I'm not backing down. I'm going to take McGee's to blow the doors off, like I said on yesterday's episode. However, this Devils Canes is a whole different ball game.
It is a different ball game, and I agree with you. That play from Darnell Nurse, there's no reason for him to be cross-checking Quinton Byfield at this point. I mean, that's just going to fire up the Kings going into the first round. And that, to me, also expresses some of the problems with the Edmonton Oilers as well, mentally going into the first round. A couple of loose cannons in Darnell Nurse. Corey Perry, we know what he's capable of at times when things are going down and south for his own team. So for me, those are two wild card guys that can really negatively impact the Oilers going into the postseason. And then we already talked about all the injuries with this team. I am remaining and standing tall with the Kings in 6 on this one. I'm going with it. Quinton Byfield, X factor in that series as well. Like you said, Canes and Devils, though, we sort of talked about this very quickly a couple weeks ago when they were the first matchup to already be locked in place going into the postseason.
Yes.
Devils, Hurricanes, real quickly. Season series was split 2 apiece for both the teams.
Yep.
Playoff history-wise, Hurricanes have a winning record over the Devils, 18-11-0. Hurricanes have the 25th ranked power play this season at 18.6%. but also have the best penalty kill at 84% compared to the Devils, who are in the top 5 on special teams, 3rd best power play, 4th best penalty kill. Over to you. Where do you want to start? Hurricanes, Devils, and who's your X factor?
let's start with the Canes. And clearly, at this time of year, I've said it 650 times a season. Special teams is so critical. And so I think easy X factors for both teams here are the ability of their special teams to be effective. But I think there's an angle here that needs to be exploited. And as much as the Canes have that top PK, their power play is struggling. The Devils' power play is surging. They have the third best, and they're scoring goals on the power play. So as much as I do want to start with the Canes, and I think that their strength, like what I look to is that blue line depth, I'm going to take their top four pairing over the Devils' top four pairing, how it looks right now. Slavin, Burns, Orlov, Chatfield. I'm going to take those four over Hughes, Pesci, Dumoulin, and Kovacevic. Those four, to me, that's an edge for the Carolina Hurricanes. And also, this is an edge for the Carolina Hurricanes because I bring this up on the regular as well, Steele. Every single season since Rob Brind'Amour has taken over, they're a very tough team to play against, and it's hard to create and generate scoring chances. They led the NHL in shots against, under 25 shots against per game allowed. In today's NHL, looks like a typo. I said that the other day too. 24.9 shots against per game allowed by this Hurricanes team this year. If they clamp down without Jack Hughes up there, and I will sell you on the Devils in a minute, that to me is an angle where this Hurricanes team succeeds, and we know they hang their hat in the defensive zone. So that leaves me with my X factor. Can the Seth Jarvises of the world do what they do? You know I'm coming on here and saying Seth Jarvis is my X factor for the Carolina Hurricanes.
If you didn't, I'd have to call you out because that's your boy right there. You have to give him a shout out every single time we bring up the Carolina Hurricanes. For me, the edge, when I look at the Carolina Hurricanes, they have the edge behind the bench with their head coach, Brind'Amour. They have the edge offensively with the top six group, even their depth scoring now with guys like Taylor Hall and Kotkaniemi. They have the edge defensively, like you just perfectly explained with the top four deep pairing. For me, the X factor for both teams, it relies heavily in the blue paint. You have both goaltenders going head-to-head, veteran goaltenders over the age of 35 who have very different playoff experience. Jacob Markstrom's only been in the postseason twice. Frederik Andersen seems to be there almost every year with the Anaheim Ducks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, now with the Carolina Hurricanes. So that's my X factor. It has to be Frederik Andersen. And even though when Andersen has gotten into the